Hello and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference, this being the first episode of Season 5. We've got an absolute barn burner to kick off the season with Jarin Blaschke. He's the DP of Nosferatu. He works with Robert Eggers a lot. You might remember The Lighthouse back in the day. Great conversation. You're going to love it. I'm not going to spend any time wasting your time. And I'm just going to let you get to it. So this is episode 170 with Jarin Blaschke. I actually, the past 4 days, I've just been bouncing through screenings. And so on Sunday, I saw Nosferatu. On Monday, I saw Nickel Boys. Okay. Last night, I saw Wicked. All right. I just spoke to Alice Brooks an hour ago. Now I got you and Jomo I spoke to yesterday. So it's been a very whiplashy kind of.
This is going to be the best.
Yeah. Well, and I've been going through and just like trying to marathon interviews with people because I hate, like, no offense to anyone who does interviews, but I fucking hate when it's like, so tell me about yourself. It's like, let's waste 20 minutes. If that's someone asked that, you can look that up. If you're looking up interviews with someone, you probably found the interview where someone asked, "Oh, I grew up in."
How'd you get into this? And whatever. I don't know.
Right. And also, how'd you get into this? It's always the same. We liked movies. We had a camera when we were a kid. My friend worked at a video store. I watched, Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back really hit me hard. Now I wanted to do this.
Yeah, it's always something. It's Spielberg and Lucas for everybody. Of a certain generation, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, so for instance, you grew up in a small town of like 2,000 people. I grew up in a small town of 5,000 people. Oregon for you, Northern California for me, local video store. Yeah, same fucking story every time. Have you been watching anything recently?
No, I don't. Like, I want to go to all the screenings, but I haven't had time just because I'm doing this. So it's the most press I've done. I mean, like, awards time for Lighthouse was my first proper exposure to that, and then this is a little busier than that even. So
yeah, well, and I've noticed that I just got to stop asking people because, like, I've noticed that especially right after coming off a gig, or sometimes people are shooting something in the moment. I was talking to Greg Fraser about Dune, and he was like just wrapped with Hail Mary, and he's like, I don't have time to watch. Like, I'm shooting a movie. I don't want to think about other things.
Yeah. He seems nice. I met him at Camerimage a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. But yeah, it must be hard to try to, like. For me, it's easy because I shoot documentaries or indie films or whatever. And I can just check out and go film something else or watch something else. But I imagine it's hard to stay kind of.
No, I'm not
artistically checked in, I should say, when you're.
I'm not doing anything. I don't know how to follow up Nosferatu. So I'm just like, yes. I haven't been doing anything. I've just been trying to, like, set up a home somewhere for the first time ever. So.
Has it been like a long, like, just nonstop since, I guess, pre-Lighthouse?
The Lighthouse was when I moved out of my crummy apartment in LA, and then it was fine. I built a little dark room. It was nice. But then and then moved to Nova Scotia, and then come back, and then we moved to Marin, and then personal stuff, and then went to be near family in Massachusetts, and then the Northman, and that takes ages. And then that kind of went into Nosferatu Part 1. That got canceled essentially, and then stranded in Prague, and then let's live in Europe because it was such a pain in the ass moving here, and they got my daughter into the school, and I'm all embedded in Prague, and so let's just try to survive off of commercials. That the agency I got was like excellent. I was like, oh, I'll just talk to them. And then, like, they just got work for me immediately. So then I just kind of did commercials for a bit there. And then the Shyamalan movie, and that one. And that's Pennsylvania. So I'm homeless again. And then Nosferatu. But I was there with my daughter for whatever that was, I guess 9 months.
Jeez.
And then moved to London. Then I was like, okay, I got to move somewhere. And I had some money because I just did a movie. So yeah, I moved to a place in London and just went into commercial mode again. And and then we travel all summer. But
Not bad. I mean, I've heard that Prague gets a lot of work. I mean, here in LA, it's deader than it's ever been. But I know Prague seems to be pretty consistent.
Of a certain kind. Yeah. Most of the crew does, I'm sure like most places does a lot of TV. So, which is fine for some things, but means that you got to bring in certain people for a movie.
Right. I did hear in an interview you did talking about the difference between a European crew and an American crew and your preferences. And I was wondering if you could expand on that, because I as someone who works in the lower end of budgets, I'm always trying to steal good ideas from people when it's not union and no one fucking cares. It's just like good leadership qualities or practices.
Yeah, I mean, you find kind of generalizations in each place, and maybe it also any observances I have to do with like where I was and the kind of things I was shooting at the time. Like New York, that was my scrappiest period. I was there for 15 years, and yeah, I'm doing like donkey budgets, and so maybe that has to do with like the people I was working with. But then I found some like really. But you find some gems. They're just kind of just nerds, which is who I really want to work with. I know people get really into like the blue collar, like union camaraderie and all that. I kind of just want dorks around me just to like come up with new things. But yeah, so I found you can find some dorks in New York among all the other New Yorkiness of it, and then yeah, LA tends to be just about getting their benefits, and they love to talk about the A-list DPs they worked with before and tell stories, and then you go get their overtime and go home, and it's very much it's very professional in good and bad ways to counter the LA of it. Yeah, my best experiences so far is with UK crew. You kind of get it's humane,
Right.
and I like that it's a one-stop shop for my lighting. I don't have to like go to two departments, because it's like
That was kind of the big thing I was thinking.
you're risking like a miscommunication, because it is a holistic approach. Like I'm shooting something into a mirror, and this part of the beam has to go into a mirror, and the other part of the beam is reflecting off white. Can you take that down or whatever? And then like I don't have to explain it twice, and so
that's kind of what I guess, because I never worked in the UK, and that was the clarification. I wrote a bunch of notes last night, and half of them don't make any sense. So I'll say something, and hopefully you bring it up like just there. But that was actually it. Was how are they? Or is the like gaffing and lighting are like two separate? I mean, like they're
you gaffer the grip in Europe, as you may know, is just moves the camera or places the camera. That's it. I don't know why that's in America. That's grouped in with like your 12x20 muslin frame. I don't really get that, other than it's just not electric. So I'm imagining some sort of, you're trying to make unions in the 1920s, so less people die or something, and then it's just like, they're dealing with electricity, so that's those people, and then these people just pick up everything else. I don't know.
But then in Europe,
obviously I'm ignorant, but I kind of like that. It's in Europe, I can kind of work more holistically and creatively with a single person.
Well, and that is I guess the reason I was like, is because again, low budgets. That's
I'm going to tell you about
one is one.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about this mirror, and then I'm going to go into the crane for the camera. Like I don't know.
Right. And then you have to, you gotta, no one can go near the mirror. You got to wait for that guy to go move the mirror.
Yeah, there is a little bit of real life in Europe. Like, okay, the last permission kind of outside of my department, but all the gray areas, just like people kind of work together. So
yeah. Speaking of nerdiness, are you big light meter, color meter guy then?
What do you mean?
I mean, like I find I am very meticulous with the color meter, at least, but also the spot meter. But I find that a more modern DB tends to, maybe because I also came from film, like photography, but they're perfectly happy looking at the monitor and just hitting color and going, all right.
Yeah, that's hack shit.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously, if you're shooting film, you
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 have
have
to.
to use the meter, but yeah, like a third of the stop makes a difference as far as I'm concerned, especially in low light situations, because the lower you go or outside of, but yeah, the lower you go, that third of a stop really makes a difference because that's the difference between being visible and not sometimes. So
Yeah. Well, and honestly, that
and I'll
was
zone system it with a spot meter and the rest of it. Color meters, they were really expensive, so I never got one. And I asked the gaffer. But now I kind of match color by eye.
Mm.
I
I mean,
find that is more accurate than, because I've had on Nosferatu, I had the gaffer. He would check all the lights and stuff, and he'd put a quarter magenta on the correct HMI to the other one. I'm like, that still seems over. I think it's an eighth. He's like, it says it's here. And it's, it's an eighth. So, and it never let me down. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of rather do that. It's just more efficient than
Sure. Well, and with practice, obviously,
if you have decent color vision.
yeah. For me, it's like I'm often matching LEDs to like window light, and you can do it by eye for sure, but I've noticed that with XY coordinates, especially, like that's speaking of nerdiness, like getting, because it's going to bounce around some trees, some buildings out there. There's going to be some color that you set the thing to 5600. What does that mean?
I just look at the damn thing because it's like, yeah, you're gonna get bounce off the leaves or the grass or the brown trunk or the whatever costume, and yeah, I guess for that I prefer to use my eye. So,
Yeah. Well, and to your point about the third of a stop thing, I think that was one of the biggest sort of aha moments for me, was learning that, because you're taught stops, so everything is very rough when you're in film school, whatever. You're like, oh, that's a stop difference, that's close, that's one, that's a unit of one, that must be close. Not realizing the granularity and exposure.
Yeah. No, it's double. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's fun shit. So you've always been a film guy then, like even when you were young, you're shooting?
Yeah, my dream. I mean, the first films I made were Super 8 animated things when I was 11 years old. And we were in Central Oregon in a town of 20,000, and there was a animation teacher would come down from Portland, and as the stereotypical church basement teaching kids animation, and we just get a flip book, and then it's just transparent enough you could trace whatever you wanted to remain constant and do the new thing on the new page. And so yeah, you'd spend a week and you'd have a 20-second cartoon. And then this is before the Lego movies by about 25 years, but sure. Like I animated Legos, which is more common than I realized at the time. I thought I was like, oh, this is so easy. And then, so I had like a one Lego movie, and then I had like one drawn movie in that week. So, yeah, that was like magic. Anyway, that was on Super 8. And then you make movies in high school with your friends. And then those were like on Super VHS.
Right.
This 1994. So
VHS-C or Super VHS?
Super VHS, which maybe no one remembers. Yeah, in my head, it's like, oh, it's Super. It's the better version. It's still probably worse than Beta, but yeah. But then my dream was to shoot on film even then, because I did still photography on my mom's Nikon and would skip class and wander all over town and do that, and then develop in the darkroom and college.
I have said it from the rooftops. Like, I think one of the most, in the same way that like learning color correction these days with Resolve being free ostensibly as a DP, like getting into the darkroom is not only so educational, but more fun than almost taking the photos. Yeah, just sitting there and playing with the exposures and all.
Yeah, it's hard to get into one now because I just moved into a new place in Bath, England, and I'm trying to, like, there's a room in the basement that I have to turn into a dark room. Just figured out the fan.
Right.
But yeah, it's nice having ventilation because usually you don't. For dark rooms.
Who was I talking to? Jomo. And we were can't remember the topic, but basically he was like, oh, kind of in the way that the sous vide changed cooking. And I was like, the sous vide changed film photography. You could keep your developer, your baths all at one temperature. You didn't have to ride the spigot like a in college.
Yeah, I put a space heater in the room, and then I had the jug because I have to use distilled water. I use exotic developers, so everything has to be distilled water. It's like the distance from the radiator is like the temperature. So if I just get the room to 68 through tweaking of the space heaters, and all the jugs are in the room already. So the wash, you got to futz around with that, but.
Are you primarily a black and white guy, or do you have a preference?
You can do more. You can just customize it more. So colors just sort of you send it to the lab and whatever. So I just prefer black and white. I wish I could shoot more black and white movies.
Yeah, what's funny is my memory of Nosferatu is black and white, but even so, watching it, I was like, this is kind of desaturated. And then there would be like a pop of red or something that would go cruising by, like in the streets. I remember there was like food vendors or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, shit.
You mean ours or the original one?
Yours.
Oh, right.
There was just like elements of color that I'd see. I'm like, oh, it's not just heavily desaturated. This is like also the obviously the production design and stuff. It's very cohesive. But my memory of it is a very rich black and white, even though that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe we're just very sensitive to it. It's like people who are very sensitive to salt or something. Like a little bit of color. It's just it's so salty. So, yeah.
Well, and obviously I was watching it. I'm in a press screening and I'm watching it to talk to you about. But it was funny because my goal is always to like just go in completely blind for any of these. And so I didn't know how spooky we were going to get or whatever. And I'm sitting there. And main character's having her sort of moment in the grass, as it were. And I was like, oh, is this going to be spoopy? And then I was like, oh, fuck. And yep, all right, cool, buckle in. All right, here we go.
Just loud noise, boom. Yeah.
Well, and that those prosthetics are just so excellent.
Yeah, they went through some rounds of that for sure. That's fun. Yeah, you find yourself like. I remember I was like on set. When does this come out, by the way? Like, how much can I talk about the movie?
It'll come out after Christmas, so you're good.
All right, I don't know if I can spoil it, but yeah, I just remember being in the Hutter room set toward the end of the movie, and there's like it's a modest little room, so it's like Rob and I in like regular clothes, and then there's like this fucking vampire hanging out in the sunlight, talking to us about the scene and trying to figure out, okay, the camera's gonna go here, and when do I move and where, and not. Whatever, working it out. And then there's like, and then Lily's there half naked, and it just felt like a weird, it was just kind of cool. It's just like an artist troupe, just like hanging out naked, prosthetics and everything in between, just in this
puffer jackets
room, probably got equipment laying around, and we're all trying to figure out this, theatrical smoke and everything. It really felt like just a weird artist colony, and it was kind of cool.
Well, and it shows because obviously Lighthouse very meticulous in its framing and stuff, but unfortunately I didn't see whenever Northman came out. I was like, everyone was like, "Oh, this movie fucking rocks! You got to go see it." Yeah, and then I just never got to it, which sucks because now I'm talking to you and I wish I could have, but I'll have to go see it now, and then I'll shoot you a text and let you.
A lot of it was Nosferatu in training, so.
Well, excellent.
I'm very happy with a lot of it, but once you do the next generation, then all of a sudden what was good is now,
right.
So,
but you guys were I loved the sort of, I guess, restraint in the compositions. It was very like proscenium and very kind of formal.
Yeah, it's like illustration. It's like very now that I'm talking about it more this week, I end up saying this more, but I. Because I graded it. We graded it for such a long 4 months or whatever. And then I took 9 months off and then I'm seeing it again. And it's like, oh, yeah, this kind of looks like a storybook, the way we shot it. Wasn't in my mind lining up the shots or anything, but yeah, it's just a little flat. It's meant to be 2 dimensions. We're going to shoot flat into a room, and I didn't have a way to define it before, but yeah, it's just like opening a little fairy tale book and having these very neat little illustrations.
Well, but also the camera moves are so precise. I mean, like any kind of panning is like just absolutely. I hesitate to say mechanical because it sounds like it's lifeless, but it's just it's so precise. It's excellent.
It is mechanical, and yeah, we lean into it. So yeah, I mean, when I'm lining up the shots, it's I don't. The first rehearsal is just getting still frames of the shot. Like, okay, we're here. I'll mark several places on the floor with a finder, and then when I'm here, we're here, and we're here, we're panned here, and here's the height. It's going to be here, and then so it is a series of stills, and then your camera goes on the crane or whatever support, and then we confirm everything. Oh, this one should be a little lower actually because this is whatever the convergence or overlap or whatever, finesse it. Once it's on the camera support, then you have the real marks, and then and then you move it, and then it's terrible because the pacing's wrong. But yeah, it definitely comes out as a series of stills that then you connect the dots when you move it. So it's done. It's a little overwrought, but it's done. I think it shows up.
No, I don't think it's overwrought at all. It was. I really loved it because it does give itself a certain dread, I guess, because it's happening whether or not if it were to be handheld or something, you'd disconnect yourself.
No, it's leading. That's what we try to do. The camera is kind of the boss. It's like it's dictating. It's not following action at all. It's tugging the actors and everything else by like their collar almost.
Yeah. And also the quick shout out to the sound mixers. I watched it in Dolby. There is some like sub bass frequencies that were shaking the room.
Yeah,
I mean, like a roller coaster.
Yeah,
so good.
Park. Yeah, I guess. But sure, you got to get theater. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the sound is in post. He's very very careful with that.
Yeah. Well, and so like I was telling when I was watching Wicked last night, this girl was sitting next to me and saying, "Oh, she only goes to like the biggest movies that matter to her." So like the one before that was Barbie, and then she hadn't seen a movie in theaters for like 4 years. And I was like, "You should see Nosferatu." And she was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, go for it, but make sure you see it in a theater." Just really shake her perception of cinema if those are the last two movies.
Yeah, she'll hate you forever.
Hey, listen, I think cinema is where we learn about ourselves. So, I did want to ask about the lighting in the obviously, but
eventually, yeah. I can help you.
And was it all like it felt just kind of led by? Did you shoot on film?
Yes.
Yeah. So it felt very led by practicals, but obviously I don't know if 500T is strong enough for it. So how are you like augmenting all that? Because it feels incredibly natural.
No, yes, I suppose it's practically based. I mean, I probably missed out because I'm of a certain generation that was after the studio era and everything being fabricated. Right. I'm well after the more stylized people who are still working today,
like
Robert is not doing naturalism.
Yeah,
he is not doing naturalism. So I'm kind of doomed to some extent by my generation. But I try to do it in a very polished way. I'm trying to make it look natural, even though it's completely artificial, lighting through windows. So it's a little bit forensic. Like I'm just gonna, the feeling of 4 p.m. in February is the feeling we're going for, and whatever that means to me, I'll put that out there, and you'd have a warmer horizon. So I actually will put a warmer horizon against. I'm bouncing everywhere. Make a big sky, and then it's blue here. Then there's a gradient down to a warm horizon, and then the sun. Then a hard source that's a mirror that's reflecting a light that's 200 feet away or whatever. So that's across the stage. So I'm trying to recreate the real thing as much as I can. I don't know why. It's just some OCD shit, I guess. But
I think the audience feels it, honestly.
Hopefully
they can. I think modern audiences are smart enough, even if they don't intellectually know when something looks real or not. I think they can feel it.
Yeah, and the same thing, like all the flame, there's no electric anything. There's gonna be a lot of candles off screen, of course. And then sometimes, like in the monastery, we had to see the ceiling, and like no candlelight's gonna reach enough, when you're shooting straight up to the ceilings. And then it's like, okay, then let's add a flame bar, and then we'll put a mirror under it and give it a little extra oomph. And or a series of flame bars in that case. And we'll just barely hide it behind our nuns and everything. So,
well, and I noticed a lot of like really delicate top light too. Where you kind of was that like all the time, or was that just the one time I took a note about it?
Just a few places, just in the Harding house. I think just in the downstairs. I think it's the only place that actually happened, which Rob had never had before. Like I'd done it before, of course, but Rob never had it in a movie, just because his stuff never takes place where they're like chandeliers so far. So
right.
Even in the short films. So he kind of liked it, because you're not it's above everything, and you can move around a little faster than usual. But yeah, I was playing with that too, and trying to find the right shape of softbox, how you get it off the walls, but still wrap nicely on a person. So I think I'm doing this like kind of concave, slightly umbrella shaped softbox, which is much more difficult to do, but or just more labor intensive than like a flat one. Because like a flat one, you always get that weird hard edge on a wall where it kind of ends. So that if I just bring down the corners a bit, I think it began with like, I don't know if it was gem balls, and kind of hanging them in a slightly concave thing, and then it gets it away from the walls and wraps the face a little bit more. So that's where I'm experimenting. But even doing Rob movies, I don't really get to do softboxes much anymore, or much. So that was.
What are you doing normally on his films?
Well, window light and firelight, or fake firelight, and that's it. Sure. So our moonlight. So. Yeah,
I guess I hadn't because I guess I saw
Vikings don't have chandelier. They don't have top light. I mean, they have like skylight top light, which we had in the longhouse, but not like a top light that you feel that nice wrappy or close proximity that you get like an interior light at night. So yeah, certainly the Puritans didn't have them, and lighthouse keepers didn't have them. So
right, except for the big one.
Yes, sure, but that's shooting out.
Yeah. The other thing, my memory of the film was like you could have obviously done kind of a vintage. It's not 185, right? It's like
166. I heard that. Yeah, I heard IMDb and I think Rotten Tomatoes or something has it as 185, but it's not. It's 166.
Yeah, I was in theaters. I just saw the two black bars on the side. I was like, huh.
Yeah, 166.
That's interesting.
It's a cozy shape.
Yeah, I like it. I just wish the theater would bring it. The theater people don't.
The curtains?
Yeah, they don't.
Unless you have the milky.
Yeah, but it's AMC's fault. Plus, it was a press screening, so I don't know if they were even paying attention. They might not have had projection notes. But
what do you want? It's free. Sure.
I got what they gave me the AMC popcorn bucket. The the big metal one. Yeah.
All right.
I did get that early, so that was fun. But yeah, what I was getting at was you obviously could have gone sort of vintage with everything, being a film in
but I mean the era's essentially pre-photography, the era, so it doesn't really make sense to have a photographic reference.
Yeah, and so like the lensing seemed pretty clean, but I heard you saying that you actually shot.
I mean, the lenses are still 80 years old, and
what'd you shoot on?
What? The same lenses. The primary lenses were the same as the lighthouse, and not. Because I'm trying to be literal. I mean, with anything, I just like the way they look. So, they're just a little. They don't have too much what you would call micro contrast. It just has the skin looks nice. It's sharp enough, but it's still got a je ne sais quoi to the texture, and so that's just the reason.
Yeah, I guess in my head, when I was thinking of cleanliness, I was mostly thinking like, oh, you could have gone real fucked up with some Pets Falls or something like that. But I did see.
Yeah, we've done that. Yeah, I think but that's it. But again, that's once you go that strong, you're sort of referencing photography, and that didn't make sense for me.
Sure. And you shot Nosferatu himself on a different lens, a specific lens?
Anything to do with Orlok. We shot it on a lens called a Dagor, which is a lens design primarily used for sharp photography. in the early 20th century, it was I believe it was invented in, I think I said 1890s, but it might be 1880s actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But it used to be called a Doppel anastigmat, which is like a pretty sharp lens. Is a high contrast lens because it's before coatings, but they did a lot of corrections. But it's like two groups of three cemented pieces of glass. It's a symmetrical, so you have like these three cemented together, and you have these three cement with a stop in the middle. So the symmetry made it took care of a lot of corrections, and then the all the cement as opposed to airspaces keeps the contrast high. So that was sort of a very important lens design, which I just had Dan Sasaki make just out of curiosity. But I think it just ended up, when you use it close to wide open, which is not how it was historically used. It was used for landscapes, really, or yeah, I mean, except for later on in the fashion industry, you'd use a Degor for portraits. But it was known as a sharp lens, but they're using it mid aperture, whereas on this movie we're using it open. But it's how it looks is tied kind of relentlessly to what aperture you use. So if it's near wide open, it has this like beautiful pictorialist look to it that doesn't, and the way it falls out of focus is unlike any other lens I've seen. I thought the Baltars were like my favorite portrait lens until Dan made this, and this, because even the Baltars, they sort of look a little photographic in that you see the field curvature and like the edges of the image kind of fall out of focus different than the center, and almost looks like it pulls back into focus as you get toward the edges, all this stuff. But the Degor just kind of, it just like mists out, and it's at a 2.8 you just get those highlights that just kind of glow a little bit. But if you open it up more, then it's just kind of a piece of shit. So
Sure.
you gotta pick your stop. So you get like three lenses in one.
And were you
set the aperture according to the look you like?
Yeah. Were you finding like at what part in prep did you realize that was the move, or were you just hitting Dan with like, hey, make this for me and let's figure it out?
I'm just curious, like let's find out what this looks like. And so he's like, okay. And then I probably bothered him again. But he made it, and it's a pain in the butt because Degor lens was made for a view camera. So generally they're like at least this big, right? So, but he's doing it for 35 millimeter movies. So it's like, now you're talking each three glass grouping is like this tall, and it's all cemented, and they have to kind of fit on each other perfectly. And he admitted actually just 2 days ago that one of them, there's like a little extra glue in there. They're a little bit off. That may affect why it kind of has this like messed up glow. So, but I didn't know that. I thought it was inherent to the lens, but it might have to do with like a millimeter of glue as basically as a lens element in there. So, it's hard to make on a small scale, but it did.
Well, and he's a fucking wizard, so
yeah, it's fun to geek out with him. He made a lens that we didn't use called a Heliar. I own a Heliar. I've only used it a little bit, again, for a view camera. But that is actually a very well corrected lens. It was like too sharp, so we never used it. I thought this was going to be the portrait lens for all the Orlock stuff. It's like, no, it's like too good, and it's like too neutral. So, but it should be used. Someone should use this lens.
Yeah.
I'll use it eventually, but weirdly for like a modern movie, even though it's a lens designed from late 1905 or whatever. So,
right. I've been having a lot of conversations about lenses recently because the conversation always comes to like film needed. When film was the only option, people were fighting harder and harder for sharper lenses, cleaner lenses, whatever, so you could just resolve stuff on film. And then when digital came around and digital got good, now we're just flying backwards. But this current trend of usually like Chinese manufacturers who have these like computer perfect ground glass for dirt cheap is great for getting affordable, relatively high quality lenses, but there is kind of no soul to it. A lot of times these lenses can feel very I hate the word clinical because it's not a fucking microscope, but perfect, and perfect isn't fun.
I mean, there's a place for that. Just look at it carefully. Don't just I feel like there's a kind of a whole vintage bandwagon without actually looking at the what it actually looks like. Like there's, I don't know if it's still going on, but everyone was into the
It is.
K35s or whatever they're called.
Well, and then everyone bought out all the FDs because they're like, it's the same thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I hate a K35 personally because it has no dimensionality. It's just like all your colors are just flat. But it's like, oh, this is the trendy lens right now. It's like, well, there's just so many ways to whatever have character in your picture, but you're not actually discerning. It's just, oh, it's not soft, so therefore it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I was at Camera and there's like a new lens manufacturer that their only marketing is look at how our lens flares. Well, okay, well, how about the picture? And their ad before Camera begins is just a race car and headlights and just a big flare all over everything. It's like, this doesn't tell me anything. Like if you have a flare, it's you kind of fucked up. Like it's just, I don't understand why this is the only metric in selling your lens. So it gets a little silly sometimes. Like yes, it shallow depth of field. Okay, is that appropriate? How is it doing it? Is it doing it in a football fashion? Is it doing a neutral fashion? So it's but that's it gets a little simplistic without people actually looking at all these sub characteristics.
Well, and I think it's kind of a force for the tree issue because a lot, I can't remember where
the lens is like the last 5% of your picture. It's like, it's just the seasoning at the end of this isn't everything. Like going outside with a handheld camera and shooting into the sun like all day long that's kind of boring after a point.
Well, and it's I think it was Brian who was talking about how whatever the artifacts of your favorite genre of music or delivery method are now, I think I lost what I just said. Whatever the artifacts of what is the current delivery method for music will then become the defining characteristic of it in the future that people will look back on. So, for instance, vinyl pops and cracks.
Right.
Loudness wars compression on CDs or whatever it is. Right. People are now going back to that. And I think the same thing is true with cinematography, where right now kids are really into the mini DV look, and either by purchasing mini DV cameras or VHS cameras or flooding Reddit with, where can I get this effect? Does anyone have a plugin for this? And it's but what are you shooting? And they're like, I don't know yet. I just want it to look like there's a weird current trend of only focusing on aesthetics and having no story, no script, no actors. It's interesting.
Well, to be fair, Rob does that to an extent. Like he just wants to create a world, and it's like, or like the atmosphere. He just like, I want this atmosphere, and then makes a story around like an atmosphere and then a setting. What's the right setting for this feeling? And then it kind of goes into from there, and then a story will evolve.
But there is a story at some point.
Yeah, sure.
Versus, I have this aesthetic, now I'm going to go film.
I mean, it comes out of an atmosphere he wants to create. It's almost like atmosphere first sometimes. And he's just good and smart, so works out. But people shoot film and they underexpose it and they want it grainy and
exactly. The fucked up, like, underexposed.
That's not what film means. Actually, this is actually a superior medium.
or
just want to learn the craft. You just want the shortcut to say, "Hey, you guys shot on film." It's shallow. So
yeah, no. The amount of people I've seen share photos and they're like proudly going, "This expired in '82."
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
doesn't make it better.
And I had a K35 lens. All right, great.
Yeah. What were the
speaking of like talking shit?
This is a perfectly acceptable place to do it. But I did want to know, like, kind of in prep for Nosferatu, like, what were kind of those touchstones of the vibe and the aesthetic that Rob was hitting you with, and what did you guys kind of come up with together that's ended up setting up that look?
I mean, for me, really, it was just kind of a word, just romanticism. That word enough, and he'll reference Caspar David Friedrich, of course, just because that painting was from around that time and place, and that's the kind of easiest thing to point to for me. But that romanticism means a lot of things, or at least there's a larger aesthetic cycle in the culture, and it wasn't just Central Europe and Germany. It's in England and the United States, and it spreads almost like arts and crafts became Art Nouveau, became the Successionists, and et cetera. It's the same thing. It had different branches that went out. So, so Romanticism for me might mean something slightly different technically than what comes to mind for him. Like for me, it's more the American painters of the sublime landscape, Bierstadt and Church and these people. So, but it's the kind of the same. It's the same spirit. So yeah, it just means you're trying to make something lush and beautiful, and you're trying to convey the sublime. So, however that filters through you, do that. So, and for me, that just means a certain a richness to the image and the light, and that comes down to I'm going to give my film a rich exposure, so I get that full scale and down to the way you move the camera. That's a little uncanny and less pedestrian. Having camera lead, like we talked about, etc.
Yeah. So were you like overexposing by a bit just to kind of?
I don't call it overexposure. I just call it exposure. I mean, the film looks Kodak. I'm sure that there's a bunch of sort of considerations when they label a speed to a film.
Right.
I mean, 5219, I rated 250 just because that's what it is to me. Because I'm someone who likes a full scale, and at 500, you're not going to get a black.
Yep, totally.
So, but yeah, maybe they call it that just because that's kind of like you can market a 500 speed film more than you can a 250 speed film.
Well, I was talking to
I don't know. Conjecture.
I was talking to Eigel Burld about the holdovers, and he was saying how they wanted to shoot film because that was the appropriate, and then they realized after doing tests that 5219 is made to be scanned, so they would have ended up having to put grain back into the image to get the aesthetic that they wanted.
Yeah, but film is more than just grain. So,
well, yeah, but just like they'll look at
look at the highlights in that
digital.
movie. It's digital, but I'm just gonna put that out there.
That is perfectly fair. It just sucks that film is so expensive now, because it's like so many people want.
It's always been expensive, but I don't know if it's with inflation, it's much worse. But
I just mean like photographic film. A roll of 35 is $18.
Yeah, I'm about to do a trip. I'm looking at 120 film. Yeah, it's like $9 a roll. I was like, well, I remember when this was $4 or $3.85 or whatever at B&H, but again, that was like 2002. So I don't know.
I lucked out. I've got a fridge full, like a Red Bull fridge full of film that I bought pre-pandemic. So I'm sitting on a gold mine right now.
I got lots of film all over the place, but it's all expired or it's expiring. So I just try to get a fresh batch when I go, and then I give it away to a school or something if it expires or it's about.
I bought a handful of packs of Acros in 120 when they said they were canceling that, and then immediately they're like, "Never mind, we made version 2," and I was like, "Okay, well, I'll give me some of that too," because I really love how the contrast levels in Acros, in my opinion, are. That's my jam versus like an HP5, which I feel is.
I'm an FP4 guy, but that's me.
FP4 is good. I've got one sleeve of it in 35, but it's been a while since I've shot film. I'm being too precious about it, honestly. I just need to go back out, and I did get where is it? The little half frame.
Okay.
It's a disposable basically, but it is fun to bring out. Your friends are excited at a party, whatever, and you get 72 shots in it. That's been helping me not be so precious about it.
Yeah, 36 is too much for me. So I think 12 is a nice number.
Was that a 220 back? Or are you shooting square format?
120, yeah, it's 12. No, it's medium format. So it's like
after 12, but I mean like 6x6.
Yeah. Although or 6x7, it's 10. That's pretty good. So I find after 10, there's a decent chance where I'm going into a different lighting environment. I got to switch to your favorite HP5, but
yeah, that Yeah, because I have a RZ67, and so that's
me too.
my dumbass was doing street photography with that stupid thing when I first got it.
That looks good. No, I
It looks fantastic, but it's just
yeah, it's like plasticky and whatever. But because I used to use a Hasselblad, and I traveled, like I went to Ethiopia with a Hasselblad. It's very, I mean, I think it's very compact, and it's like perfectly engineered. It's such a pleasure to use. But I like the look of the lens on the Mamiya more. Like Hasselblad looks closer to like 35 as far as just like the um what do you call it, the field, focus field, but Mamiya looks closer to 4x5 to me, even though it's only marginally different. There's just something about the lens, just
the 110.
Yeah, just rolls off a little nicer. So I'm going back to Mamiya.
Hell yeah.
The camera's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's way too big. I did that actually does. I'm wondering if you could kind of talk me through it, if you expose film differently than you expose digital when shooting a movie, or do you think of it the same way? Are there certain obviously you mentioned highlights, but is there certain considerations that you make between the two?
I mean, I used to shoot, when I shot The Witch, I shot at 800 because I just wanted to be true. And there's a lot of like stuff in the shadows there. And then after shooting film, I don't know, I don't shoot digitally except for like a commercial here and there. But when I do, now that I shot film, it's like, well, I'm not on film. You just have less shadow detail generally because there's not as much, because digital has like a crazy toe. Now that I'm aware of it, it's like, it just doesn't end. It just doesn't go to black. So after The Lighthouse, I was like, I got that first hard shadow, which means you got to use fill light now and all that stuff. And it was like, oh man. Yeah, we had some dailies come back like week 1. And it was like, oh, that's not there. Oh shit. But yeah, now that I'm used to that shadow fall off, it's yeah, I shoot digital probably at 1200 now when I do. So and also it needs highlight information. So that's why I've sort of shifted it that way.
Yeah.
Although the curve's still weird to me. It's still like this whole shadows just go on forever, and that's like your highlights are too fast.
Yeah, and honestly,
I did the film now, so that's why I feel that way. I think I'm like Bradford Young and Greg Fraser do great with that digital palette where your shadows go on forever. That's just part of their look. So it's certainly a lot of merit. That's some beautiful work. But I'm just calibrated the other way now.
I'm with you. I recently I knew that obviously if you shift your ISO down digitally, you get more shadow detail. But it just, for whatever reason, it didn't occur to me that going up protected highlights. And so now I've started doing the same thing, just ISO up, ND.
Yeah, I don't like to shoot at 1200, 1600. Like it's just too much. Then you're cutting too much light. It's like 400 is where I like to the perfect that I find it matches my eye. I think like the image isn't brighter or darker than what I'm seeing on set. Like it's just easier to visualize. Like The Lighthouse, it's the other way. It was like we're shooting at 50 around this table, so it looks like hell. So I have to sort of trust the meter because it. And then Nights on the Northman, same thing. It's like we're shooting those at 80. So it's like this looks awful. And then because through tests that it's fine, you've already set your levels and this is how it's going to look. Yeah, and around 400 or 320, then it sort of looks similar. But like digital is too far the other way. It's just too bright. It's more sensitive than what I'm seeing. So it gets difficult again.
Yeah.
On set.
Yeah, I find for digital, at least on the Canon cinema cameras I use, that like 400 is good for when you're lighting it, and 3200 is good for if it's basically nighttime, in terms of what you're saying, like what your eyes see.
Yeah, you're not lighting anymore. It's just, I don't know. It's like you can't learn to light at 3200.
Right.
You just cannot. You got to learn to light it at least 400 or less. That's my opinion.
I'm with you on that. But I say I'm with you like I knew this. I've figured that out probably 2 years ago. that I needed to just start going lower to actually get an interesting image. Because you're right. Like when everyone's all stoked about the Sony's shooting at 12,800, I'm like, well, then what are you filming in a black box in the desert?
Yeah. Well, then you're like trying to kill your street lamps on the street or whatever. So yeah, just the job of taking light away becomes great.
Yeah. What are you doing in post with film that obviously you've color corrected digital before, but are you kind of sticking to traditional kind of printer light type thing, or are you full DI?
It's very after it. No, it's very as per darkroom parlance, like we are dodging and burning quite a lot. So and I'm not ashamed to say it, like that's just part of the photographic process. So I don't mind doing that. I think the greatest looking picture is a contact printed negative, but there's just, when you get to do that, there's like VFX are all over the place now. So, and even when you go shoot something, it's like, oh, this Vista is amazing, but there are power lines, so we're gonna scan it, take that out anyway. So that sort of thing. So yeah, so might as well take advantage. So it's basically a digital movie. It was just started its life on a piece of film. So yeah, and then I'm just, it's just that last 10% polish of what is already there. I'm not trying to fix anything. It's simply, yeah, I'm going to light it for this direction, but hey, it's a wonder, and I go all the way around. And so I find a situation where I can get 90% there in the room while still getting the camera move. But I got to put that lamp near the wall to get the right. If I put a lamp near the wall in the whatever, one of her possession scenes, and it falls off a certain way, but I want to take it a little further. I want to emphasize what's doing already. I can't really, it's a practical in the shot, so I can't do anything to it. With the control I have is how sourcey I can make it, which is its proximity to the wall. But beyond that, I still want the faces to separate. And it's a wall that is light, so it needs to be light for this other scene. So, but in this one, I'm going to just separate a little bit. So I think we'd all be shocked too, like the amount of roto that Chivo does. So he's no hack. So I feel fine.
Yeah. Well, and you've got your Chris Nolans of the world who are very like, like you said, contact print, IMAX. That's how you got to see Oppenheimer.
That's the best. That's the most beautiful color you got. But yeah, but he's kind of doing his stuff. The last however many movies are.
He's pioneering.
What do you mean? Well, no, they are. It's not the Wally Pfister lighting style anymore. It's very available light looking.
Yeah,
so industrial at times. So you can do that. He's not being precious about windows and printing all this stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was lucky enough to go to. I heard that he was not to talk about his movies now, but I heard that he QC'd Oppenheimer at the Burbank City Walk IMAX. So I got to go see the 70 millimeter, or no, the IMAX print there.
Yeah,
and what should be the perfect and it was genuinely stunning compared to even the 70 millimeter print.
Yeah, of course. I mean, was it 3 times as big? So makes sense.
It's just I think I had fallen into a I got comfortable with digital projection, and I was like, how different could it be? And so I think I saw it in 70 and then IMAX, and I was like, oh, 70, okay, I get it, yes, okay. And then seeing it in actual IMAX, projected IMAX, I was like, no, okay, I get why he wants to shoot this like this.
Yeah, well, it's also missing the optical.
Shockingly different.
Yeah, and you shoot IMAX and then you shrink it optically. It's still going through that extra glass. So in theory, it would be a loss there. So yeah, I mean that's the most beautiful color you're going to get. It's a contact printed negative, like hands down. But if you got all this VFX work and everything, Dolby Vision laser projection is pretty good.
Yeah. Do you how much VFX? Because obviously this film doesn't feel like a VFX movie, but I feel like every movie now
just do it carefully. It's 80% of the shots have VFX in them.
No kidding.
Various. That's Angela said at the Q&A the other night. So I'm going to take her word for it. So, but yeah, it's everything from the tiny stuff to it's just going in with like a little cleaning the floor with a toothbrush sort of thing, or the toothpick getting out really just. Exercising care. You know what I mean? It's not there to fix stuff. It's just there to be even more OCD.
Yeah. Which I like. Why not? The tools are practically free at this point. Like computers aren't going to lag behind if you try to do one window.
Yeah, like a lot of it's just like, oh, there's a flyaway on her head that in this shot because it's backlit. We're making a storybook movie. It's not. I think it's tasteful. It's not like there's like your digital helmet thing, but it's just like little just little polishes like that,
Yeah.
or that highlight on that the shine on that clock. I'll put a window and just make that a little brighter. I already on set rotate it to catch the window to balance out the composition, but if it's just set that highlight just a little brighter and then the shadow of that grandfather clock a little darker, it's the stuff you're only going to do, and they give you 4 months to grade too, which is great. But it does, the accumulation of these polishes do make a difference, and I think if done tastefully, it doesn't look like it and feel like it.
No, 100%. I mean, the only thing I could say about the film that maybe that would allude to is it does feel like a very precise movie. Like nothing, there isn't a goddamn thing in that movie that feels accidental or out of place or happenstantial. It feels very manicured, but in a good way, in a way that made me feel like I'm watching a movie.
It's a Rob Eggers movie, so hopefully it's in the direction of feeling stifling. Like that's part of it. It's like controlled. Like the filmmakers are strangling a little bit with like how controlled it is. Yeah, you're not seeing anything you're not supposed to, or
yeah. One, I want to give you guys credit because obviously, like I said earlier, like I was like, oh, we're going for a real scary movie, and not like there's maybe 2 jump scares, 2, 3 in the whole thing, but it's just the vibe of it is very ominous and shit. But Are We Neighbors got one of the biggest I mean, there was like 10 of us in the room. Yeah, when
Now We Are Neighbors.
Now We're Neighbors. Yeah.
When I think when it cuts to the final, the wide shot at the end of that library scene.
Yeah, because the line basically got past me until everyone started laughing, and then I heard it, like thinking back on it in that moment, and then I started laughing, and I was like, where the fuck did that come? Like, that's such a goofy, because he's just all hunched over and fucked up, and he's Now We're Neighbors. Look, I love little touches like that. Yeah, I don't know, that hour went by pretty quick.
Oh, did it? Yeah, probably 2:00.
Yeah.
Anything else we just kind of, I don't even know how much we actually talked about Nosferatu. We've talked about more, and
well, that's half the conceit of this show is like, you're going to be on a press tour. You're going to probably answer the same handful of questions all the time. So I try to give an audience something else that's a little more personal. I guess a good thing would, for people who, obviously, like we said, this will come out when people can actually see the movie. It is in theaters. But is there anything that like you'd want people, maybe on a second viewing, first viewing, just take it in, but something that you're kind of proud of, that you were like a shot you really liked? That
I mean, it was a goal of ours to have an effective jump scare. I think we sort of sold, like when you made The Witch, we sold it on we're just too fancy to stoop to jump scares. I mean, there's sort of one late-ish in the movie with the witch suckling the goat's teat and everything, but sort of not very effective one maybe, but it was a goal of ours to like, okay, we're not going to cop out. We're just going to like do a jump scare. So there's a handful of them, and I think the most successful one is the one I think is in the hallway with the oil lamp, because the other ones are just sort of like quick cut, loud noise, easy, fine.
Yeah.
The lamp was one that was a little bit more engineered, where it's like, let's try to get Lily hidden behind Emma, and when they turn around, then you reveal her. But then I realized that we have the lamp in her hand, or the hand. It was casting a shadow on Lily, so it was actually a very organic way to reveal her, was just through the shadow moving by her hand moving the lamp. So anyway, I think it's kind of funny to mention that Rob sent me a YouTube video on how to make a jump scare. It was like the formula. It needs to be at least 2 minutes long. You have to, I think it was like James Wan with like examples. It's like ones that work, ones that don't, because of these reasons, and broke it down. And I think it was a good tutorial. So whoever made that, thank you very much. We put it in Nosferatu.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so we followed the formula, and goes down the hall. Like, take your time. It's a little too slow. She's looking around. Oh God, there's gonna be tension. Where are the cameras looking? That's a little too slow in the pan, like elsewhere in the movie, though. But we're fine. We come back, and you're like, oh crap! Now we're gonna reveal something when we come back. Whoa,
okay.
Fine. I don't know how this means balloons.
It's the balloons' hands.
Yeah. pitchfork balloons, pop, pop. But yeah, as you pan back, so, oh, now that's going to be, and then you've already established twice that everything's fine, and then that's when you nail them, that sort of thing. So that was rewarding to do that one.
I honestly
jump scare that's just like hand, throat, loud noise.
Yeah, bleeding from the mouth, whatever.
Yeah.
No, that was the one I was going to bring up, was the fake out, and also the pace at which that pan happens is so you're just sitting there like almost covering your ears, like I know it's coming, I know it's coming, I know it. Okay, it's not. No, it's going to come and sit. Okay, no, it's not. It's a great. The pacing of that is wonderful.
Yeah, I should find that video again, and I just think it's a fun thing to mention that's a good YouTube video. How to.
Was actually, this is nothing I should ask. How much of that, obviously all the interiors were sets? Yeah. Okay.
I think all of them except for one. Yeah.
The house?
60 sets. So yeah.
60?
Yeah, 60 sets. I mean, if you include the exteriors and the interiors. The Rum Village was like the inn. The inn interior was actually the inn. Usually you do the interior where you have more space, but that one, for whatever reason, had to be there. And we had a bunch of wall, and we see very little of it. So we're not, anything that the camera doesn't see was not built. So, because when you have a space that's only seen in one shot, you can just focus on that, and you have no superb, you're not wasting money and resources on what the camera will never see, as opposed to making a set so everyone can kind of arrive and decide, look at it, and then decide how to shoot it. It's like, no, this is the shot, and then build the set around the shot. So,
well, and I think there's something to be
within
said.
The confines of what's historically accurate. Like it's Craig will come to us with like, okay, it would be something like this, and I said, well, okay, thank you, and then I'll look at what the lens. We'll design a shot around that idea, and then from there, it's like, well, can you make this a little longer and this a little closer together, just building around what the lens will see, because that's all that matters.
I was going to say, I feel like there's something to be said that something I really appreciate about filmmakers such as yourselves is like that attention, that care. I think it's potentially far too easy a lot of times to be like, let's just light it for 360, build everything, and we'll figure it out on the day. And it's nice to hear like, oh no, we designed it to be how it is.
Don't need that wall,
yes.
Or you only need this half of the wall. So just put your resources into making this the best it can be. Because he's got 59 other sets too, by the way. So,
and I'm sure the producers are happy with you about them too. We don't have to build the whole wall.
Yeah, or maybe it's in the way, or but he's building a set with like a crane base in mind, because we're using cranes on interior. We're using crane bases in Ellen and Hutter's tiny little bedroom, and so that wall has to go away, and then we're actually in that with a crane, which is kind of crazy, but that's how you get that first shot in that room. The camera's like gliding over beds and doing 180s and all that. So
yeah,
and sealing pieces to let light in, and then closing again, like within the shot, or as you come around to front light in that bedroom, you'd have double shadows, and that's bad enough. But then you'd have a camera shadow from one of those windows because you're right in front of one of those windows. So as we come around, we like glide a flag over one of the windows, but then the other one has to be stronger, so to compensate. So it's like a kind of the set. It's like all this stuff happening off screen to make it look hopefully natural.
Yeah, I mean it does. I love the compositions you guys chose, and it feels as someone who's not like a horror guy, I loved every second of that film, and it certainly felt every movie you see, you're like, I'm watching a movie, but this one, it felt like an old school, like proper film, and I was very excited to have
hopefully, yeah, thank you,
enjoyed it. Yeah, we only get to talk for now, but I'd love to have you back on next time you're free, and
sure,
keep nerding out. Maybe I can pick your brain about more.
We'll talk about film developers next time.
That's literally what I was.
Yeah.
Was that or isn't Rob Pattinson cute? Something like that. I don't know.
Hard hitting questions.
Yeah. That's me and variety. All right, man. Well, I'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day, and enjoy Los Angeles.
Okie doke. I'll do my best.
Yeah. Take care, brother.
Okay, bye.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.